In today's episode, we're talking about the number one thing you could do that would kill your messaging in your business. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today's episode was inspired by a student. As you guys know, we have a couple different programs. So we have the Video 4X program, which is kind of like a self-study sort of program. We have a mentorship program where it's a group program where we work with people on their messaging, their content, all of that stuff. It's a year-long program. And then we have our Done For You service. Now, I don't call myself a coach. I don't think I'm a coach. I don't think I'm a great coach. And one of the reasons why is a lot of the problems, or not even problems, I guess, but a lot of the things that are stopping most entrepreneurs and a lot of people we work with from getting the results that they want is they just wait for everything. And you might be doing the same thing. So if you're not seeing the results that you want inside of your business, it might be because you're waiting. And I'll talk more about what that is. And this whole episode is going to be around this idea of waiting. But one of the reasons why I don't think I'm a good coach is because this idea of waiting actually goes against everything of, not everything, but mostly who I am and how I operate. So one of the reasons why I've seen success over the years is because I don't wait for anything. Like I remember when Jim Fortin was, the early days of working with Jim Fortin, I would send him copy. Like, what do you think of this copy? And he would take 8 hours to get back to me. He'd finally get back to me. And I was just like, sorry, I already ran the ad. I don't care. I just want to run it. I'm going to get it out there. So if I get an idea or I sense a direction or I know I'm supposed to do something, I just go and do it. And this is so important because I think a lot of people have these fears of like, I'm going to lose money or I'm going to get judged or I don't know if this is the right move, when there is no right. There is just a direction, and either way, you're going to get something that you need. Either you get the result that you wanted or you get some kind of lesson. There's no in between. Those are the two things that are going to happen. And everything ends up always being okay. But the thing that stops most entrepreneurs is waiting and overthinking. And so the reason why I don't call myself a coach is because, just to be honest with you, I don't really have the patience to deal with like giving someone the answer and then them not taking the action and then them coming back and be like, well, what about this? It's like, just go and do it. However, I do think I'm a good mentor. And that's why we call our group coaching program the mentorship program, because the mentorship program is basically like, I'm going to help you do it. You go and take the action and do whatever, but we're not really going to address, like, I'm not a therapist. We're not really going to address all these different blocks that you have and all these things. You have the advice, just go do it. And yes, there is a certain degree of like working people through different things, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you just have to go and do stuff, whether it might not feel ready, whether it isn't perfect, whether it doesn't feel 100% right. My philosophy is always 70% perfect is perfect. Just go and do it. And as soon as you do it, you're going to get the results. You're going to get the feedback. You're going to have a deeper level of knowing on how to do something. And one of the reasons why this is so important is because messaging and business evolve over time. So what you start with will never be what you end with. And most people, they just don't get this. So let's look back at my story. 2 years ago, we started the Video 4X Effect. Didn't know what it was. I wasn't really sure how we were going to launch it. I didn't know how, we didn't have anything created. We sold it before it was created, but I did it anyways. And I didn't wait. And I knew that by putting it out there, I have a very good idea. Is this something people want? Is this something that's going to sell? Does the messaging around this feel good? Does the messaging, is the messaging effective? And as soon as you put something out, you get that feedback. You get a ground line or a baseline of something to build off of. You get a foundation of, great, here's the results I got. Let's adjust it and let's try it again. But the thing is that most people, They never get the baseline. They sit around for 2 years, never doing anything. They ask the same questions for 2 years. And one of the reasons why this came up today and why I wanted to do an episode on it is, and this might come off as like, look at me and them. This is not a judgment thing. This is not like, look how great I am and look at you who are still stuck. It's not what this is at all. The intent behind this episode and sharing what I'm about to share with you is to get you to realize that waiting is literally killing your message, and it's literally killing your business. It's literally killing the results you want. And most importantly, it's literally killing the impact you can make on people's lives. That is the intention of what I'm about to share with you. So I remember 2 years ago when we started the Video Forex Effect, I had just done an affiliate launch. So I promoted Business by Design, which is James Wedmore's product. We had a fresh group of people come in into this group right around the same time. It might have been a little bit before I launched the Video Forex. And there was someone in the group who wanted to pivot and change what they were doing. And they were seeing success in something else, but they were called to do something better and deeper. And this was 2 years ago. So right around the same time I launched the Video Forex Effect, I didn't wait. I launched it. I knew I needed to hire Taylor. I didn't really have the money. I didn't wait. I did it. I figured it out. We went through all these different versions of the Video Forex. We did all of these different things. I didn't wait on anything. We just did it. And then we were able to grow because we were seeing results. We were adjusting. We were seeing results. We were adjusting. And I knew that whatever it was would evolve over time. It wasn't going to be perfect, and it never will be perfect when we first start. And the reason why this episode started is because that same person 2 years ago, I just saw them again online, and they literally asked me the same question 2 years ago. They were still in the same spot. They had not made the pivot. They had not made the change into the direction they were being called to go and do. And I don't know why. It could have been a number of different reasons. They could have been afraid. They could have been worried. They could have been afraid of being judged, whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff. And I do get that we all have individual beliefs and problems and experiences in life, different blocks. I'm not judging them in any way. But the difference in the 2 years was we started something from scratch and grew it into a multi-million-dollar business. And they're still in the same exact spot of where they were. And I don't want to discredit them, because even that experience of waiting is giving them a great lesson that they need to learn. But at the same time, a lot of entrepreneurs who are not seeing the results they want do that exact same thing. They wait for 2 years, they get the advice, they get something else, then they continue to ask the same questions and they don't take action on anything. You know, when I was struggling with my business and it wasn't really working, I met with James Wedmore. If you guys listened to that episode, you heard a little bit of this story. But I met with James Wedmore for coffee, and he's like, your business model is broken. And he told me, here's the prices that you should be charging. Here's how I would go and do it. If you can do this and make this business model work, and you can build this model up to $10,000 a month, I will partner with you, and we can package this up into a program. We can sell it. The very next day, I didn't wait for anything. I didn't ask him any more questions. I got the advice that I needed. I didn't ask him, how am I supposed to do this? I didn't ask him, give me the guidelines on what I should be doing. How would I approach these business owners? How am I supposed to sell it? I just went and I did it. I went out there the very next day. I printed out flyers and said, I'm going to close a restaurant today. I'm not waiting on anything. I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to go do it. So I printed out flyers that said, do you want to be the one restaurant in Thousand Oaks? Because that's where I lived at the time. That's going to be on the first page of Google. And I went to every single restaurant and I said, we will get you featured on the first page of Google anytime someone types in Thousand Oaks restaurant, but I'm only taking one, and it's first come, first serve. I went out there and I went to every single restaurant, gave them the flyers. I got past the gatekeeper and no one bought it. I went to like 45 restaurants, literally every single sit down restaurant I went to. And I talked to managers, I talked to the owners, I did the flyers. On my way home, I get a call. Hey, I just saw the flyer. Can you come on back? So drive on back, and they go, we want it. How much is it? I tell them it's $1,000. Keep in mind, $1,000 was more money than I had in my bank account at the time. Like, we're talking broke. We were making money, but all the money went straight back out. And I was selling videos at $100 a video at the time, and James told me to charge 2,000. I charged 1,000. He said 1,000, 2,000. So I charged 1,000. And then to get them ranked and to do the SEO, we charged $200 a month, and they signed up right then and there. I text James the next day, said, already got one. Like we're going to do this thing. Super easy. And I started thinking in my head, wow, if I could make $1,000 a day doing this in one city, I spent 4 hours. I could do this day after day and just go from city to city to city after niche after niche after niche. And then I was just like, oh my God, like keep in mind, I didn't have like $1,000 was more money. I think we had like $800 or $900 to our name at the time. And that was more money in one like 4 hours session than I had in my entire bank account. And the number, like, I'm like, oh my God, if I could do this 7 days a week, 30 days a month, I can make 30 grand a month, $200 reoccurring. I was like, that's $6,000 a month. I'm like, my life has changed forever. So I text James the next day. And if you guys listen to that episode with James Wedmore, he said, that's one of the reasons why, went through with the partnership. He's like, you give advice to so many people who want to pick your brain, and then they don't take any of the advice. They just ask you the same questions 6 months later. And then they wonder why their business isn't growing. And he said, but that you were different. You took action on it and you got a result the very next day. He's like, hardly anyone ever does that. And that right there might be one of the best traits you can have as an entrepreneur. Because here's the thing. Yes, it worked out and I closed the video that day. Had I not closed the video, guess what? I found one way that didn't work. I have a baseline that I can grow off of. Okay, great. What was successful about that? Well, I was very successful in being able to pitch 45 business owners. I think I may have had like just 5 to 10 people tell me, no, we're not interested. I had almost 90% of them, if not more, listen to my entire pitch. That would have been a great success. That would have been a baseline that I can grow off of. I could have gone, okay, great. The offer wasn't there, but now I know I can get in front of like 40 different business owners today or tomorrow if I needed to. I knew the process. So I knew by taking the action, it was going to give me a baseline to build off of. That baseline is something that allows us to build, to stack on, to evolve from. Now, as I've been building a business, I started to realize like offers change, business changes, messaging changes. When you wait 2 years to take action on something, or even a month, because you want it to be perfect, you're afraid of how people are going to judge you. Number one, that fear or that worry or that desire to create the change or to start a business, it's not going to go away. If you want to start a business, you want to make a pivot, you want to do whatever it is that you want to do, that desire is not going to go away. So you have a choice in this moment right now. You can either decide, I'm going to wait a month, 2 months, 6 months, I'm going to try to get it perfect and then go do it, or I can do it now and learn the experience now. Because here's the thing, it's not going to go away. Unless you're going to quit on your business, you're going to have to eventually make the decision to go and do it. What benefit do you get by waiting a month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 years? What are you losing by waiting a month, 2 months, 2 years? That's the most important thing. Have you ever considered what you're actually losing? How many lives are not being changed because you want to wait? And the worst thing about it is if you do have a mentor, you do have a coach, you're basically not valuing their time when they tell you to go do something and you don't do it. And I get there's a lot of fear in it. There's a lot of like, what happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if it does? And even if it doesn't work out, what lesson are you not getting that is going to propel your growth? And you have to learn that the value and the change comes from action because you get that knowing. So for example, when I started, I'm just going to tell you guys my journey of everything because and here's the thing. I don't want this to, again, I'm just going to say it. I don't want this to come off as, guys, I'm so good. I just go and I do and I do and I do, because that's not the case. I still wait on a lot of things. Like even when we closed down the business, it still took me, a long time to make that decision. It took me a few months to make that decision. Even this podcast, the New Generation Entrepreneur podcast, it took me about 3 years to finally do it. Like we had the New Generation Facebook group for about 3 years before we actually did the podcast. And same with the personal brand. It took me a long time to go through that process too. So I'm not saying that like I'm the perfect person on all of this stuff, but I do know most of the time I don't wait. And most of the entrepreneurs that I know that are successful, they don't wait on things. They go and they do it. And again, the reason why is because your messaging in your business, they're going to evolve. So like when we started the Video Forex Effect 2 years ago, it literally was, we're going to show you how to fix video in your business. What it is today is basically a messaging and a content program. But that evolvement of getting to where it is now and us finally hitting our stride only could happen had I just gotten started, had I just put it out there, had I launched it without knowing exactly what it was, had I worked with the students, like working with the students and launching it and doing it and building out the team and doing all of this stuff was what allowed us to get where we are today. And so when I look back on my story of where I really got started, I got started this whole online space back in college. And I started to build out humor sites. So like funny videos and things like that. And what we actually did at the time, and most of you guys might not even know this. I know I've told my story a few times, but there's some things in here you might not even know. And one of those is humor sites. So I would build out these things like collegehumor.com and different things like that. I didn't start collegehumor.com, but they were one of the ones that we were kind of modeling. And we would just get funny pictures and funny videos and I put up these humor sites, and then I had to drive traffic to it. So what I would do was put these embed codes. So you could copy the code of this video and put it on your MySpace profile. And then it would obviously have a link back to my site. And then what we would do is we'd go to all the other humor sites, and they had these sections called link dumps, where you can post, you can post funny, links to funny content on the internet that they didn't have on their site. And they would like have a bunch of links on there. And every once in a while, like I'd get on College Humor and eBombs World and all these other humor sites, and we would get like 20,000 views in a day, unique visitors in a day to our site. And I would be able to grow these things. And so I would build out these humor sites pretty easily after I learned the process, because again, I didn't wait on how to do it. I just did it. I played around with it. It was like a passion of mine. I was like, how do we do this? And I just did everything and tried everything. And I got so much data so fast on what was working, what was not, that I was able to get the results a lot faster. So I started to do these humor sites, and that's how I made money. I would build traffic to it. We would get like on average 100,000 unique visitors a month to these sites, and then we would sell them for a couple $1,000s. And that's how I made money in college. But what it taught me was how to build websites. And I learned that trade on how to build websites. So then when I graduated college and I started working for my dad, and I still had, again, I had that desire to want to go start a business. I had that desire. It didn't go away. Like, even though I was making good money with my dad, the desire to have my own business didn't go away. That's why I'm telling you, if you have a desire to do a pivot, to make a change, to have a certain message, it's not going to go away. You have to just go do it. So I started to build websites on the side. I was like, oh, I can build websites for people. That's what I'm going to do. And then I made money doing it, but I quickly realized I hate working with clients. Like, I just didn't like and I didn't like building websites. And so what I was doing all the time was building these websites. But the only reason I knew to build the websites was because I did the humor sites. Then what I started to do is I started to build out a tile directory store. So at the time, my dad had a friend who started a directory site, kind of like what Yelp would be, but niche directory site. So, it was like treatment centers and different things like that, like the very niche directory sites. And he would make these things, he'd build them up, and then he would get them ranked in Google and then drive the traffic, and then he would flip them for a couple $100,000. So I was like, oh, that's great. So I created this site that was a tile directory site where people could go to find tile stores and tile contractors. I built out the website. I worked with some coders. I bought a database of all these tile businesses and contractors, imported it into our directory, and we were off to the races. And so the next thing was I had to get it ranked. So I started learning SEO. I started learning search engine optimization. And I actually got this tile store ranked for the term tile contractor, tile store. And then what happened was Google changed their algorithm and we lost the ranking. So I was like, all this work out the window. But again, I didn't wait on anything. I just did it. I learned it, and I learned the lesson that I needed to learn. But what it left me with was the ability to rank and learn search engine optimization. So then things weren't really working out with my dad's business. So I said, and that, again, that desire was still there. The desire to own my business was still there. And yours is going to be there too. It's not going to go away. So what I started doing was real estate videos. and ranking them. So anytime there was an address, I would create the video, we would put it up there, we would rank it real fast. We were working with real estate agents on ranking for like real estate in Thousand Oaks or Camarillo, stuff like that. But again, that came from learning to rank, which came from the tile store. But I only knew how to do the tile store because I was building websites. And I only knew how to build websites is because I did the humor stuff back in college. So then what happened is I started to realize, okay, I'm not really selling this thing. I don't really know what to do, but now I know how to rank videos. So I started to teach YouTube marketing and how to rank videos. And I started to get a little bit more traction there. I started to put together programs. I started to work with James. I started to sell it as a service, and I started to get a little bit more traction. Then I started to learn Facebook and ads because I was like, okay, great. Now I have a service. I have a great offer. I have these online programs. How do I run ads? How do I actually launch it? And I started launching with Local Video Academy with James and learning the launch process and how to run ads and do all of that stuff. And we built out our business doing that. And then that led me to eventually learning messaging. How do we write copy for the ads? How do we do all this stuff? And starting to realize that I was really good at messaging. And that kind of leads us to where we are now. But when we backtrack this entire process, we sell messaging, which only came from me realizing that messaging was our thing, came from launching the Video 4X effect, which, by the way, the Video 4X effect was only about how to use video inside of your business. But even the learning process of launching and doing all that stuff came from working with James. But the only reason why I worked with James was because we had this connection over ranking and teaching YouTube marketing. But the only reason I knew how to do the marketing and the ranking was because I was doing it for real estate agents in their videos. And the only reason I was doing it there was because I learned to rank this tile store site. And then the only reason I did the tile store site is because I knew how to build websites. And the only reason I knew how to build websites was because of the humor sites. And if we backtrack all of this, it basically stems from me learning and not waiting on building out humor sites back in college when I was 21 years old. I'm 35 now. So for the last 14 years, I've had idea and I've taken action on it. I didn't care whether or not it didn't work out because I knew it would leave me with a lesson. So if you have that desire, go and do it. You want to change your messaging? Do it. You want to start a business? Do it. You want to pivot your business? Do it. You don't like something in your business? Change it. Don't like the message? Change it. Don't like the offer? Change it. Don't like the audience? Change it. And do it now. What benefit are you getting by waiting? In the last 2 years, and so again, I really don't want this to come off as arrogant. I really don't want, because this is not my intention. I don't want this to come off as I'm better than anybody else, because I'm not. I'm a human just like everyone else. But I do know that this ability or skill or whatever you want to call it is what has led to success today. And all I want is for you to experience the success that you want in business. And it's not going to happen by continuing to wait. So when I look back at our student from 2 years ago, who's in the same spot today as they were back then, and I look at what I've done in the last 2 years, is in the last 2 years, I've been $40,000 in debt, and I hired someone when it didn't make financial sense. I did it anyways because I knew that's what I was supposed to do. I stopped selling a business that was producing $500,000 a year because it didn't align with me anymore. I didn't enjoy it and I didn't like it. I waited a little bit on this one. This one was hard, but I knew it wasn't right. I knew I wanted something else. So I stopped it. I sold 3 offers that weren't made yet or weren't created. Again, this is all in the last 2 years, maybe two and a half years, but 2.5 to 2 years. I sold 3 offers that weren't created yet. And I sold them and scaled them and made them. I hired a team as soon as we needed it, even though I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to hire a team. I didn't know how to manage a team. I didn't know like all the payroll laws and all the things that you have to go through with hiring a team. And I've learned a lot of lessons. I didn't know that you should get documentation with your team anytime you have a talk with them. And if it ever comes to a time where you do need to fire them or let them go and all the stuff that you need documentation. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I did it anyways. And I didn't wait. I learned as I went. I put $100,000 on credit card to do 2 launches back to back. Even though we were seeing great success, I needed more capital and I didn't want to use all of our cash to head into these 2 launches. So I did it anyways. I didn't wait. I didn't wait on launching. I didn't wait on the ad spend. If you know you need to put money, you need money to go do a launch, which is what I did. I just put it on a credit card because I knew I needed to do that. I didn't say, I'm just going to put 25,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 on it now. I'm just going to go do the whole thing. And look, I'm not telling you to go do that. I don't want to give you guys any financial advice. You have to make financial decisions that are right with you, but I'm just giving you my own experience. And so that's what I did. I knew I needed to fix the agency side of our business because it was taxing on me. It was taxing on Taylor. It was taking all our time. We didn't really know what we were doing. And so I hired Matt and had him fly from Massachusetts. Yep. Out here. Again, I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't wait. We tried to fix it. We tried to do it. We tried to get it going. We didn't have the expertise. We didn't have the knowing of how to do it. Matt did. He came and he fixed it. And in the last 2 years, we did all that. We've also killed the Sold with Video brand. So we killed the brand that didn't sit with me anymore. And that was a brand I had for 8 years. We've killed that in the last 2 years. I've created 2 different group coaching programs. One that was teaching people how to get a creative director inside their business, and one now, which is our mentorship, our $1 million mentorship program. I've put on 2 events in the last 2 years that have brought in a total of $200,000. We didn't know how to run an event. I've never sold at an event before, but I didn't wait and I did it anyways. And that's just a list that comes to the top of my mind right now. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 major things. And I'm sure there's a lot more on this list that we've done in the last 2 years. But the problem is most failing entrepreneurs, they won't do any of that. They're literally going to stay in the same spot because they're too afraid of a consequence that's going to happen. And so what you want to do is you want to look at that. If that is you, there's no point of feeling bad about it. And my intention is not to make you feel bad about it. My intention is to guide you into the place that could bring you the most growth. And you have to understand is if this ability to be able to reframe the fear, recognize what is actually going on, why am I waiting? What am I afraid of? What's really stopping me? And once you recognize that and you reframe it, it can shift everything for you. And again, this is why I love messaging so much, because this is literally what we do inside of messaging. We create content, we create messaging that removes those blocks, that reframes fears and worries inside of people. And this is why I love messaging so much and why I love teaching it to people like you, because I know you can go out and make an impact. And by taking these tools and giving them to your audience and using them on your audience, they can have a much more fulfilled life. But you have to be able to do it yourself too. So what I've done, and I'm just going to give you my experience here, what I've done and what I've realized is that even if taking some kind of action, so for example, if I put on one of those events and each event did about $100,000 in revenue, if I put on the event and we didn't do $100,000 in revenue, I didn't see it as a loss. I didn't see it as a failure. I saw it as an opportunity to get that baseline to grow off of. I looked at it as an opportunity to get the lesson. I looked at it as an opportunity to gain the knowing of it. I looked at it as a part of getting the mastery of it. And mastery is the end goal of everything. Mastery is being consistent at something so much that you become the master of it. And that's what I start to crave. And so when I look at anything that's me heading into the unknown, I look at the waiting or the procrastinating on it as a hinderer. I don't know what the right word is, but I look at it as me waiting and procrastinating as a block for me learning the lesson that I need to learn. It's a block of me gaining the knowing, and it's a block of me getting the mastery of something that I want to create. So the 4 steps that I would recommend for you guys, because this is the 4 steps that I go through anytime I have the procrastination, anytime I am waiting, is I first have to identify the fear. I identify the fear that's actually stopping me from taking that action. And it could be everything. It could be like, I'm afraid of the judgment. I'm afraid of the failure. But again, reframe the failure, because it's not a failure unless you say it's a failure. If you get the lesson, you get the knowing, it's not a failure at all. It's just one step into the right direction. So identify the fear. And usually what that fear is going to stem from, in most cases, is that you're afraid of what will happen if it goes wrong, which is where the reframe comes in. So the reframe for me has always been, if it goes wrong, which by the way, it going wrong is just an interpretation. It's just a perspective that you hold. It's a subjective opinion. Not everyone's going to have the same opinion of what wrong is, which means you can reframe it. So you're basically saying, well, I'm going to have this result and that's not really the result I want. And I'm afraid of that result. But start asking yourself, and this is step number 3, start asking yourself, what lesson can you learn from that? What can you gain from it going wrong? And then I even put myself, which is step number 4, is I put myself into the consequence of waiting. And I don't think a lot of people do that. A lot of people put themselves in the consequence of what could go wrong. They don't put themselves in the consequence of what's going to happen if you wait. I'll say that one more time. Most people will put themselves and live and make a decision based off the consequence of what could go wrong versus the consequence of what you're going to experience by waiting. So what I do is I start to ask myself in the step number 4, what benefit do I get by waiting? Because here's the thing. You do get a benefit by waiting. People always do things in their lives based off of the benefit they get. So if you're waiting, you're procrastinating, you do get some kind of benefit. And ask yourself what benefit that is. Maybe it's the benefit of not getting judged. Maybe it's the benefit of not experiencing this illusion of failure that you created. And what you have to ask yourself, is that benefit you get by waiting worth missing out on what you want? Is it worth missing out on the desire that you want? Is it worth missing out on the amazing results and business that you can build? Is it worth missing out on the impact you can make in people's lives? So step number 4 is identifying what benefit you get by waiting and asking yourself, is that benefit worth the benefit that you could get on the other side? And so start asking yourselves these questions, start reframing it, identify the fear, reframe the fear to have a better approach. So ask yourself what you could gain versus what could go wrong. What lesson will you learn? Step number 3, ask yourself, what lesson am I going to learn here that's going to propel me and get me closer to where I want to go? And then identify the benefit you get by waiting and ask yourself, is that benefit worth you missing out on what you want and what you could gain on the other side? Because at the end of the day, that desire you have inside of you is not going anywhere. So unless you're going to quit on your business, there's no point in waiting because you're going to make the decision to do it eventually. You eventually will do it. So you can either wait 2 years to do it, or you could do it now and see a lot more progress. So that's what I want to leave you guys with today. And I want you guys to go through this experience and I want you to learn it, because if you can learn to reframe your fears, have a more positive outlook on life, learn these lessons, they're going to benefit your audience on a much deeper level. And when you're able to do this, imagine how much more powerful your messaging is going to be when you bring your messaging out there to your audience. So with that, if you guys enjoyed this episode, I would love a review on iTunes. So head over to iTunes, leave us a review. And if this message and this episode was impactful for you, I would love to hear the biggest breakthrough or takeaway you had from it by heading over to the New Generation Entrepreneur Facebook group and posting in there today. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.